Welcome back to Island Life Stories, the podcast where we sit down with people who've packed up their lives and moved somewhere completely different, and find out what really happens once the removal van's gone and reality sets in. I'm your host Darren, and today's guest has done this not once, but twice. My guest today is Kate Kurdziej. Kate's a business strategist and retreat launch coach who, back in 2020, was working in wealth management in Yorkshire and newly pregnant when COVID hit. What followed was a UK lockdown business launched from home, a bold move to rural France to chase a lifelong dream, and then, 2 years later, an even bolder decision to admit that dream wasn't quite working and start again in Jávea, Spain. We're going to talk about what it's really like starting a business with a 5-month-old baby, the visa maze of moving between 3 countries, and what happens when you get everything you thought you wanted and it still doesn't feel right. And why she says nobody actually cares as much as you think if you change your mind. This one's honest, it's funny, and it's got some brilliant practical advice if you're even vaguely thinking about a move abroad yourself. Let's get into it. Here's Kate.
Hi, Kate. Thanks for joining Island Life Stories. Really pleased to have you on today. Really can't wait to get stuck into your story. It sounds really fascinating. The fact that you've moved twice, not just once, twice internationally with a young family, grew a business as well. I think it's just really inspirational. Let's start by introducing yourself. Let's find out about Kate before all this happened and what led to these huge decisions by the sounds of it.
Yeah, I'm Kate. My name's Kate Kurdziej, and I currently am talking to you from Spain, but our story started 5 years ago, leaving the UK 5 years ago. But these days, fast forward to now, these days I am a business strategist, so I run my own business consultancy. Started that when my son was 5 months old during COVID lockdown in the UK. And yeah, it's grown and something I'm very proud of, but it has facilitated this move abroad, which has been incredible to have a business that you can make money from and live in the place that you really want to live. A very different life to what I was living in the UK. So yes, that's me. I have a little boy. He's 6 years old, just turned 6. And we live in Spain, in Jávea, which is about an hour south of Valencia. Lovely place on the Costa Blanca. So we can use Alicante Airport or Valencia Airport. On a very clear day, you can see out to Ibiza. So it's on the same sort of latitude as Ibiza. So very similar kind of coastlines, lots of palm trees, surrounded by mountains as well, turquoise, Mediterranean. So yeah, little slice of paradise.
Oh, lovely. So with COVID, got a lot to answer for. I find that's a running theme in a lot of the interviews I've done so far, where there's been almost like a watershed moment for a lot of people. Was that the catalyst for doing what you did, or was this something already in the pipeline, bubbling away in the background?
Yeah, it was a mixture, a little bit of a shit show of everything at that point back in 2020. So I had been working in wealth management. I was a practice manager for a wealth management company in Yorkshire, and I wasn't happy in that job at all. And then I found out I was pregnant, and that was at the end of 2019. So this was all pre-COVID. So I crashed and burned out of that job, crying in the car parks, 3 months pregnant, going, I can't do this anymore. And had a kind of blissful pregnancy really until March 2020 when COVID lockdown started and my waters broke early. So it all kind of, there was a couple of weeks where my son was in the intensive care unit. There was nobody on the roads. Everyone thought the world was ending. And I think that was, for me, the pivotal moment, and for my husband as well, where we were like, wow, life can change so quickly. What are we going to do? And we started thinking things. But obviously, we had a newborn baby at that point. We couldn't really think straight anyway. And it got to the point where my son was 5 months old. So this was about September time, 2020. So still in and out of lockdown. Still very kind of early days of COVID. And my maternity pay was running out. I didn't even have a job to go back to because I'd quit. And yeah, with mat pay running out, I was like thinking and started applying to big jobs that were full time. And I thought, I don't want to put my little tiny lockdown baby into childcare at 5 months old. And I had this real internal kind of dilemma going on, which I'm sure most parents go through of child, do I want to put my kid in childcare or not? But I didn't want to. And I looked at my husband, he was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to start my own business. You know, if I can work from home and not have to put my son in full-time childcare and kind of start building a life that could maybe support us now for the next 20, 30 years, like what does that look like? There's no more perfect opportunity than now, because my husband was working from home a lot because he was employed at that point, but he was working from home. So we had this kind of little opportunity, really. And I always think, like, in hindsight, like, that was the golden opportunity. And only some people will take it at that point, right? Like, only some people will jump in because nothing's ever perfect. That was the right time to start my business. And I was just in the right place at the right time, and it took off. So at some point a little bit later, I did have to put my son in some childcare, but it was always very much like minimal childcare, working from home, working in nap times, working in the evening, just building things incrementally. And then my husband actually lost a really good friend during COVID, not because of COVID, but I think it just showed us the fragility of life at that point. And corporate roles, mortgage, car, family, everything can just disappear overnight. So, you know, I think we just had a bit of a YOLO moment, to be so cringe, and just think, what are we going to do? Is this what we want for the rest of our lives? And the answer was no. We'd been planning sort of loosely for a long time and moved to France. But at that point, Brexit had just happened. And it wasn't so easy. Like, I don't know, you know, moving in and out of the EU pre-Brexit was just just rock up with a car full of stuff and don't get on your EasyJet flight home. Like, that's moving abroad before that. But then we had to go through the visa process. So we did our entrepreneur visa applications for France, and we got our visas, and we just left. And my son was 18 months, and we drove over on the Channel Tunnel. We sold our house, sold all our belongings, and went into a rent to live France. The dream had always been to move to France, to be honest, Aaron. I'm in Spain now, but the dream was always France. My husband and I speak fluent French. We got married in France. We met in France working. Like, France was the ultimate. We wanted that farmhouse surrounded by sunflowers. And then we got it. And this is something that I love reflecting on as well, because we got everything that we wanted. And we were like, is that it? Like, really what we wanted? Like, I think we've been so focused on the move to France and moving to France that we hadn't really looked at what our life would be like in France with a very small child. And I don't know if you know anything about France, but there's no one there in the countryside. So to get any kind of form of life, you have to live in a town or a bigger city. And we really didn't want to. Like, we wanted to live with fresh air and countryside. And
Yeah.
so that's where we moved to, and it just, in practice, wasn't what we wanted. And I think after we did 2 years there and some very cold summer, cold winters, we're about an hour northeast of Bordeaux. So lovely, like sunflowers in the summer, like beautiful. We had a pool, and it was just, you know, typical French lifestyle, but it was just quite boring. Like, there just wasn't, you know, our age group there. There wasn't a lot of families. All the village schools had closed 20 years ago, so you had to go quite far to get to a school. And we just thought, this is good, but it's not good enough. And then...
So your son wasn't of schooling age at that point, so you're thinking beyond
He was
that.
18 months to 2.5 years, 3 years at that point, and he had started French creche, so like French nursery. And he was having some speech delays and some behavioural issues because of not being able to communicate properly. And they were not handling it well because it was just a little village kind of creche, and they weren't they had no extra training. So it wasn't good. And I think we saw a bit of the path in front of us of, if this behavior continues, if any issues continues, what will happen? What will happen with our son in France in this location? So then we started looking at maybe moving into Bordeaux or Toulouse or somewhere a bit bigger where there's maybe some extra support that we can get. I would say at this point, he's absolutely fine. It was just a very difficult period for the family generally. He's had some extra support and he's absolutely cracking now, but it was quite a worrying time. And we just I think we just had a flash forward of what are we actually going to do as this gets worse. So we started looking at international schools, and obviously they're based in cities. And we thought, we really still don't want to move to a city. We moved to France for fresh air and a countryside and outdoor life, and that isn't what we wanted. So we started Googling, where else could we go? And I remember one day we were watching, I think it was something like New Life in the Sun or Place in the Sun or something like that. And there was this scene, and I've got nothing against Benidorm, but I personally wouldn't want to live there. It's not that far from where we live now, but I wouldn't want to live there. But there was this shot on Christmas Day, and people were in the sea, in the Mediterranean, in turquoise water. And we were like, what are we doing? Freezing our asses off in France. I work remote. There's no reason to be here right now. Our son isn't doing well in the school system. It probably will continue to be pretty bad until it gets much, much better. So what are we doing in our life? So yeah, we kind of Googled very quickly where international schools were in Spain. We thought if we could get him into some English education, like a lot will be solved. And that was the case because we could get some English support at that point. He's in a Spanish public school now. He's absolutely fine, learning Spanish and Valenciano and all sorts. He's absolutely fine now, but he needed that intensive input. So, yeah, we started Googling, and my husband was like, oh, a lot of the international schools are in cities, and so I don't really want to live in central Alicante or Madrid or anything like that, or Barcelona. But he's like, I've seen this one in Jávea. And so we started looking at Jávea, and I was like, I know that name. And my dad had started thinking about retiring to Jávea years ago. He never did in the end. But he knew that sort of Jávea Denia area. So I was like, oh, I think it's nice, because my dad looked at it and was pretty serious about moving at that point. So we Googled it and realized that it wasn't a massive city. It's tiny, and it has the most beautiful beaches and a lot of amenities, that everything's very low rise. We're like, oh, okay, this is a genuine option for us. And yeah, got him into school, got him into national school. The digital nomad visa had just started in Spain, which was very lucky. I think, looking back on the timeline, we were very lucky with that timeline, because if it was 12 months before, we wouldn't have been able to do it, because I have to work. So we couldn't ever get a non-lucrative visa. So we had to work. But they just brought in this digital nomad visa in Spain, and my business was doing well. So we got that, paid someone to help us because we didn't understand any Spanish. And within 5 months, we bought a house sight unseen, handed in our keys for the rental, sold things, packed up, and driven to Spain. And nearly 3 years later, we're still here, and we've got absolutely no plans to go anywhere. We love it here. And I think, looking back on our timeline, I feel like everything happened for a reason at that point.
Yeah.
I feel like the universe was showing us what we wanted and what we don't want. And the house that we had in France was the dream house. It was this huge place, 5-bedroom, 4-bathroom, thick stone walls. So it was always so cool in the winter. It was gorgeous, big garden, swimming pool. I felt like that should make us happy. Now we live in a little 2-up, 2-down house, 10 minutes from the most beautiful beach, street parking, and we're just as happy here, if not happier. So it's funny how kind of life has shown us that, really.
Yeah, I completely get that. Yeah, I think it's amazing. You've actually got to live where you've always wanted to live that dream, and then just sort of, oh, okay, it's not quite the way thought.
And I tell you what, that was quite a scary moment, Darren, because anyone that knows us knows that we always wanted to move to France. That was the dream. That was the one goal of our life, was to move to France and raise a family in France. And when we had that thought of, we don't want to be here anymore, what if we just move to Spain? What if we just move somewhere else? There was that kind of, but what will other people think? What will other people think of us changing our minds? And Kate's been talking about this for 30 years. Is she, how can she just do a 180 like that? I was really worried, and I realized actually no one really gives a shit. Everyone was like, oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So that I should never hold anyone back. So if anyone listening that thinks maybe, what will other people think if it doesn't work out? Because I think that's a big thing, isn't it? What if it doesn't work out?
Yes.
What if I have to move back home?
Yeah.
And I just think, you tried it. No one else did. You're the one that actually went and did it. And if it didn't work out, then it didn't work out for a reason. And you can't just stay there because that's what you always said you'd do. You have full autonomy to change your mind. So what's so wrong with that? And I think that was quite a game changer moment for me, when I thought, actually, does it matter what anyone thinks? So I found out no one really cared anyway. But it was just, it can block you, I think. And a lot of people listening to this might feel the same, blocked about, what if I have to move home, or what if it doesn't work?
Yeah. And going back to what you said earlier with regards to being in the middle of lockdown, and like I said, a lot of people were thinking, what should I do now? Having a good look at their lives and thinking, what sort of changes can I make? But obviously a large percentage of people didn't actually act on anything. So to actually have that mindset to say, yeah, let's just do it. Let's go for it. It's all calculated. We've mitigated any risks. But then to just actually make that bold move, do it. And then have the mindset of, okay, this hasn't quite worked out, but it's for a reason. Let's look to Spain. We're getting there. We're getting what we want, but it's not quite France. And not giving up in it and thinking, this hasn't worked. Let's go back.
We already sold our house. We've got no
Yes.
belongings. We have a little trailer and a roof box of all our stuff and a little Citroen C4. And we just thought, let's try somewhere else. What's the other option? Go back to England? We haven't exhausted this process yet. We're only just starting it. So we did 2 years, didn't work, changed. We've got absolutely no plans to move anywhere else. I think it's freaking fantastic here. But it's the opposite of what I thought I wanted. I mean, I always knew I wanted sunshine, but I get to live by the coast now. The Mediterranean is very therapeutic for a lot of people, and any sea and oceans are for a lot of people. Now I have a kind of different, fulfilling almost a different dream. It was always a dream to live by the sea, but it's always so expensive, isn't it, to live by the sea anywhere in most countries. But in Spain you can a little bit more easily, so I get to fulfill a slightly altered version of the dream now.
So was your business born or established in France, or was that something that developed when you eventually went to Spain?
No, that was UK. So I started as a UK limited company. So my son was 5 months, I think, when I registered my company. And so it's always been in sort of like business operations and strategy and consultancy. But it's gone through 3 iterations now. So it was UK limited, and then I closed that down and set up as self-employed in France, and then closed that down and set up as self-employed in Spain. On the surface, branding wise, nothing's changed. It's always been called Lively Consultancy. But on the back end, my God, the paperwork of changing like accounts and re-registering and things like that. It's been interesting, but worth it. And I always think with that kind of thing, like maybe you feel the same as moving, like any like moving paperwork, but you only do it once. You don't have to do this every single month, like with visas, or we had to change our car from French to Spanish. That cost €1,000, but it's just a one-time thing. So every time that we do something like it's just a one-time thing.
Yes.
And then we did that in France, and then we're like, we're just going to move to Spain now. But it's just one more one-time thing. So we're not moving again. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, no. Obviously, that's a visa thing as well, as I take it. You've got to register in Spain to get the visa.
Yeah. That's been a very interesting journey. So when we moved from England to France, it was on my husband and I 2 individual entrepreneur visas. So you have to do a business plan for it, submit it. They go, you'll make minimum wage in France. You won't be a burden on the state. Have a visa. And then you have to renew that. You have to keep up those earnings and renew that. In Spain, it was a little bit different because digital nomad visa, my husband's work couldn't transfer to Spain. He was selling houses in France and he didn't want to do that here, and there was no company transfer that he could do anything like that. So my business was making enough money that I could be the main applicant for the digital nomad visa, and my husband and son could be my dependents. So they're not earning, and I am earning, even though my husband could then get work when he's here. But on the actual application, he can't be working and have any money contributing to the application. It has to be me and my client. So that was all fine. My business was doing very well at that point, and that the finances weren't a problem. But we've now gone and do another iteration. So the digital nomad visa, if you apply in Spain, you get a 3-year visa, 3-year residency. If you apply in a consulate outside of Spain, you get 1 year. So we obviously wanted to be in Spain to apply and get a 3-year, because no way I'm doing that every year. So it was 3 years. We're about to come to the end of that 3 years this summer. But in the meantime, we remembered that my husband has Polish ancestry, and Poland is in the EU. My husband's been going through the process of getting his Polish passport, citizenship. And so we've just gone through this ridiculously bureaucratic experience of switching everything from my visa with with 2 dependents to my husband's, now the main applicant, because he's the EU citizen. Now I'm spouse of an EU national, and then my son is obviously son of an EU national. So we now get 5-year residency. We're classed as like EU, much lower income requirements than a digital nomad visa. Just a third of the income per month is now necessary for the 3 of us, which is a huge pressure off me personally to be earning. But it's much easier. But that is, that's taken a lot of money and a lot of time and effort to get that sorted. And the process of actually getting the Polish citizenship to begin with took a couple of years to get all of the paperwork together, because you have to get all the military, because he was in the military, so to get military records from London, from Kew Gardens and all this sort of stuff. So, and obviously there's a lot of people doing that kind of thing because they all want EU passports again from England. It's one of those things we just had to join a queue basically and do it. But it's all come through now. With the final part of the process is me and my son need to go down to Alicante ID and get our fingerprints taken and get a new card, because obviously we've got our sort of current one. So we need to get a new card for this new type of visa. But yeah, that's been a very long, arduous process, visas. And I completely empathize with anyone going through a visa process, because it's just, yeah, it's a lot. And the frustration of having all of the documents and then to talk to somebody that, get your appointment. And then quite often, just depending on who you're talking to that day, they go, no, this isn't good enough. You need this different document. Oh, you need to take out private health insurance. Oh, no, you don't need to take out private health insurance. And you just think, well, why isn't there a criteria list for this? Why are we all not working from the same process with visas? But they don't, and that's really frustrating. So you have to kind of play the game a little bit and just keep trying. And yeah, it's worth it.
You're thinking outside the box, that isn't it? I look just to go on. We still get a EU visa, but like going back to what you said earlier, you're just going to think, we do this once, it's done. Just get it done, and then that's it.
Oh, that's it. Just a one-time thing, and once it's done, the renewals are always easier. It's that first visa application where you're literally starting from scratch. Renewals are so much easier because you're in the system, and they just need X, Y, and Z, and then you just go to the appointment and renew again. So usually that's much, much easier. But that first time, I sympathise and empathise with anyone listening going through the visa process for any country right now.
Oh, that's amazing. Your son is flourishing at the moment.
He just turned 6.
Bilingual?
He switched from British International School to Spanish public school. And we're in the Valencian region, so they also learn Valenciano. So it's like Catalan, very similar to Catalan. And Mallorca has a similar kind of language as well. So really interesting for him. There's a very big international community here, and a lot of Dutch at the moment as well. So he's picking up, we speak English at home, Spanish like Castellano at school, but then Valenciano with that. And then he has a load of Dutch friends. So he understands a bit of Dutch now as well. And I just think we were talking about it with some parents the other day. And we just thought, like, how wonderful that they get to grow up in like such a beautiful place, but surrounded by different cultures and languages. And it's just, it's an incredible lifestyle for the kids to grow up in. This will be normal for them.
Ultimately, that's the goal, isn't it, really? And I know having a lifestyle for yourself, but seeing your child grow up in that environment, you're doing something right as well. And that's brilliant.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's the opportunities that the kids will get, and it's the healthier lifestyle to live for us in the sunshine and be able to swim a lot of the year, just be outside. We had family around last night, and we were just sat out on the terrace at the back having some bubbles and some tapas, and just think, oh, it's so nice. Like, you could do this in England, or you could do this in another country, but the warmth and the sunshine makes such a difference. So for me personally, like, that was a huge draw of moving further south, is that in France in the summer that we could get that lifestyle for Ollie, for my son. But in the winter, it's very much still indoors and still, living a lifestyle that we wanted to do less of, but we were still doing a lot of that. So in Spain, it's, it's still cold in the winter, but cold compared to somewhere like England, it's not. Like, I still wear my big coat, but I check the temperature and it's 18 degrees. So
cold and wet in UK.
Cold and wet, exactly. And that's the difference, isn't it? If you live somewhere that even if it's cold, it doesn't matter, but it's the blue sky and the sunshine that makes such a difference. Personally, to me, like, I've never been diagnosed with SAD or anything like that, but I certainly feel that, like, that's something that I feel in the winter. And then when the warmth comes back in the spring, it's amazing. But if I've had a winter where it's cold and wet and grey, that's going to be far worse than a sunny blue sky winter, even if it's cold.
Do you have any future plans from where you are now? Have you got any sort of short-term, long-term goals? Are you thinking of?
Yeah, a couple. One is more kind of house-related. So, like I said, we bought this sight unseen. We actually bought it without a mortgage. We had a small amount of money. It was large amount of money, but it was 135,000 euros, and we could just stretch to afford it without taking a mortgage. We had to pull in some favours, but we bought it without a mortgage because we were moving country from France to Spain. I was going to be the only one working, and we were taking on international school fees. We just thought, I don't want all this risk on me and my business. So we bought the house. We were really wanting to find somewhere without a mortgage. But it is small because it's more like a holiday home kind of style. It's lovely, but it's not got a lot of storage because it's a much, much smaller house. We don't have our own driveway, like all of these kind of things that when you live here, it actually does make a little bit of difference. And we would just like more space. I'd like my own office again. In France, one of the many bedrooms was my whole private office, and now I'm in a nook at the bottom of the stairs, which is fine. It doesn't make a difference practically, but I think lifestyle-wise, we know that this isn't the forever house. So I think the first thing that we want to do is, my husband's working now, so we're in a position to feel a bit more comfortable taking on a mortgage. So we would like to buy a sort of dream house, like the forever house, 4-bed detached with a pool, that kind of house, rather than feeling a little bit squeezed in here. So I think we'll probably do that in the next 12 to 18 months, something like that. We would like to be moved.
In the same area?
Completely same area. And we're going to do a bit of a tactical move over to the next town postcode because the high school's better in that town. So we've got him in the good primary school, and then we'll move over to the good secondary school. So we're going to do that. But yeah, on a sort of personal basis, on the business front, so when I moved to Spain, I realized how incredible this scenery was for just your mindset and disconnecting from any kind of noise. Like, I could totally get when people come here on holiday. It's just a different vibe completely to where we were in France, which had its own benefits. So I started running business retreats here because there's a lot of kind of retreats going on. They're more in the health and wellness space, but I started running business strategy retreats here on a bit of a whim. It just happened one time, and I'm doing more and more, and they're growing in popularity. So I want to do more of them and do less online and do more kind of in-person stuff, because being a sort of COVID-y time business, I really only worked online, like in my business. I've done a very few amounts of in-person stuff, but not as much as I would like to. And in the early days, that was great because it meant that when Ollie was little, I could be at home. But now I'm like really wanting to get out there more. So I think we're going to do some more in-person events and more retreats. And I now help people with their retreats. So I'm a retreat strategist. So I help people launch their retreats and just slightly pivot into a different kind of vibe rather than like online business consultancy. It's more retreat based, and there's a different kind of pool of people that I work with now who are opening my mind to different kind of wellness things and food and lifestyle and things like that. So it's nice. I feel like I'm evolving here.
Yes, it's kind of pushing yourself a little bit as well, then, isn't it? That taking yourself out of the comfort zone a little bit. That's brilliant.
Yeah, it is definitely.
I was going to say, is there anything you'd do differently if you had the chance to do it again, say from 2020 onward? Would you class France as something as positive impact, the fact that you did that? Would you do that again?
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think we learned so much. I don't think we would have made the same decisions moving here if we'd not gone to France first. I feel like that was part of the learning curve. And it made us realize that we didn't want that when we had a small child, we didn't want that massive house because the amount of maintenance. We had a ride-on mower for the garden. It was that big. It was just work. My husband was constantly putting the pool cover on and off and cleaning it. And that sounds like a proper first world problem. But when you're working full time as well, and you've got a baby and all of this stuff, it just became like, why have we chosen this life? So I think if we hadn't have done that step, we would have chosen that here. And then that might have soured us against this area, this lifestyle that we've chosen. So I feel like in hindsight, it's a really good question to reflect on. I feel like in hindsight, I would have done it again because I think it's taught us the lessons that we probably needed teaching at that point.
It's part of the process that's got you where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. And it showed us things with our son that we might not have seen if he wasn't in that particular scenario. And even though we have our own kind of trauma from it, I think it showed us things that we were then able to do something about. And who knows what that would look like. It's a bit of a sliding doors moment. You don't know what that would have looked like in 10 years' time. So we feel like ultimately now, we left the UK nearly 5 years ago. We're in the best position that we could be right now. My husband and I both work between school hours. We go swimming every day after school in the summer. We've got the lifestyle that we want, but only through the learnings that we've had on the way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And who's to say that France isn't an option way into the future when you're a lot older. At least you've experienced it now.
Absolutely. It's always going to be close in our hearts because we speak French, we got married there, we worked there. Like, it's always going to be a country that we love. But I think if we had stayed, we would have really fallen out of love with it. Whereas now we look back at it and we're like, oh, like we're doing a road trip in the summer. We're going to be driving through France. I'm so excited to drive back through France and see France again and see the French countryside. And it's still got a very special place in my heart, but I wouldn't live where we lived because that was far too rural. That was one of the lessons that we learned. And there's so many amazing places in France. Anyone listening to this thinking, I want to move to France or I'm in France, no bad word against France. It just wasn't quite the right fit at our time in life. But it's totally different. You're no doubt that when you've got a small child or small children, you need different things if you're a retired couple or if you want to live in the middle of a city and be a 20-year-old employee. There's very different times in your life, and that wasn't the right fit for us at that point.
I'm 51 and living in the middle of nowhere sounds fantastic at the moment. So everything you just described in France, it takes everything from me. Yeah.
I live in Spain. When I hear like noisy Spanish are very noisy culturally, that's fine, that's just how everyone's up. But then you hear a dog barking and then you think, oh my god, what would I give to live in the French countryside? But it was just a time in our life that I get why people move there and want to retire there. I'm not so sure it was the right fit for us moving as a new young family at that point. So yeah, not a bad word against France, but that point in time wasn't quite the right fit, wasn't aligned.
Any small piece of advice for anybody in the UK thinking, or anybody in the world really, thinking about making a big move like that with a young family or not? What would you say to them?
I think I would headline of just do it, but that's always not that easy to just do it. Like, that's really crap advice. Just do it, because you need to, like, there has to be a plan. There has to be understanding. What I would say, one learning, and I think I touched on it here, about the French move is that we had been planning that for so long, and that had been the dream forever. I remember when I was 7 years old on a French campsite thinking I'd love to live in France one day. Like, this is my dream for my whole life. I didn't think past that. I didn't think about, like, when we moved, Ollie was 18 months and we'd moved so rural that there was no childcare. The creche places were full. So we had him at home juggling between two jobs for a year with no childcare. So we didn't even think that through properly. There was an assumption that you move somewhere, you put them in the local school, local creche, whatever that might be. So we didn't think that through. We didn't really think like where the nearest shops are, doctors. Really hard to get a dentist in France. Sometimes you literally have to travel hours to find a dentist appointment. I don't think we'd gone into enough granular detail of what would our life be like, because you still have to do the supermarket shop, right? You still have to take your kid to school. You still have to do things. It doesn't matter whether you live in England or abroad. Like, you still have to do your daily life things. So what would that look like in the place that you're moving to? And I think that was our biggest lesson, is I personally hadn't done enough further thought on that. I'd just been so focused on the visa and the move, and that has so many moving parts on its own that I hadn't quite got to the point of what would it. It's a bit like when you have a kid, and especially your first one, you're reading all the books, you know, everything about pregnancy and childbirth, and then you get a newborn in your hand and you're like, what do I do now? Because you haven't read that far, right? No. I would definitely say my advice would be definitely do it, but think through what your actual life will look like for the next 10, 20, for the rest of your life there. Is there stuff to keep your children entertained? If you've got kids, like, you're going to be driving 40 minutes to the nearest swimming pool when they have their swimming classes. These things matter, and they might feel small and trivial, but on a daily, weekly basis, they definitely matter for your kind of enjoyment and lifestyle in that new country. But I would say it's almost always worth it. Even if I know people that have ended up back in their home countries and they don't regret it, because they're like, I wanted to do it. And if I hadn't have done it, then I would have always thought with. And I just think you're only here once, so give it a go. If you've got the means and you're able to, just try it, because you might love it.
Brilliant. Fabulous advice. Kate, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate your time. And it's been amazing hearing your story. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Darren. Thank you.
That was Kate Kurdziej, and I don't know about you, but I think that line is going to stick with me for a while. You have full autonomy to change your mind, so what's wrong with that? It takes some guts to admit a lifelong dream wasn't quite right, and even more to go and build a different one instead. All of Kate's contact details, her socials and links to her free retreat training and her upcoming business retreat in Spain are in the show notes. So do go and check those out if you want to follow her journey or get in touch. As always, if you enjoyed this episode, please do subscribe, leave us a review and share it with anyone you know who's dreaming about a life somewhere else. It genuinely helps more people find the show. Thanks so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Island Life Stories.